So in case you missed it, I recently hit 10,000 subscribers. So to celebrate, I thought I'd not only count down my top 10 favorite JRPGs, but I'd also do a giveaway as my way of thanking you for all of your support. So here's how you can enter. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and leave a comment naming one of the games from this list that you'd love to own. In a week, I'll post a video announcing the winners and we can connect from there. And with that out of the way, let's get started. What's going on? My name is Taylor and welcome to the Gaming Shelf. If you enjoy JRPGs and want to stay up to date with the latest news, reviews, and other fun videos just like this, then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Starting this list off, I have Tokyo Xanadu EX+. In my opinion, this is one of the most underrated JRPGs of the entire generation. My elevator pitch for this game is basically Persona with ease combat on a much smaller budget. Now that might seem like a diss, but it really isn't. I really enjoy this game. And it has a similar gameplay flow to Persona. You go to school, have some free time that you can enjoy with characters, go dungeon crawling in a parallel world, and other fun side activities like going to the arcade and skateboarding. I gotta say, I love the dungeons in this game. They're just so much fun. There's a great flow between breaking different crates through the world to collect things, the combat is fast and fluid, and there's enough traversal to keep things interesting. What's cool is that monsters in the different dungeons have different weaknesses, and that kind of keeps it fresh because you're forced to play with different characters you normally wouldn't. My only real complaint is the white shroud segments that are kind of in between chapters, as I feel like these really slow down the pacing and don't add much to the game overall. But honestly, I mostly just have good memories of Tokyo Xanadu, and the game just continues to grow on me the more as time goes on. I didn't really like Final Fantasy XII when it originally launched on the PS2, but with the Zodiac Age remaster, it really sold me. People complain a lot about Vaughn and Penella, but honestly they just fade into the background to make room for Balthier and Ash's story as the game goes on, which I really enjoyed. And honestly, Balthier is one of, if not my #1 favorite character in all of Final Fantasy. He's just so witty and fun, and anytime he's on screen, it's just a good time. Adding the speed up in the new Zodiac Age version really helped with combat. I think speeding up the combat really helped to get to the core of what makes the combat so good, which is building up your character through the jobs board and the gambit systems. I really loved fine-tuning my characters as I learned new abilities and obtained new equipment. One of my favorite things to do in video games is explore, and I had a total blast doing it in Final Fantasy XII. The world is just so gorgeous and brimming with life. Whether it's one of the various environments that you fight in, or it's one of the big cities like Rabanastre or Brujerba, I just loved looking at every little quarter and every little detail this game had to offer. Not to mention, partaking in the various hunts and obtaining different summons was a total blast. No matter what I was doing in Final Fantasy XII, I was just having a ton of fun. In my opinion, Octopath Traveler is turn-based combat perfected. It takes plenty of cues from Bravely Default by being able to store up turns and attack multiple turns in a row, but also building on it with various weaknesses that enemies have, similar to Persona. Building out my ideal team after collecting different gems to unlock different classes and mixing and matching different abilities was so much fun and just so satisfying. People complain about the unconnected story overall, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to get these bite-sized stories, and I could partake in just the ones that I wanted to that hooked me the most. And for me, Ophelia's story was my absolute favorite. I loved her heartwarming story of wanting to help out her family and just doing whatever it took to do what was right, and I just loved her character. Not to mention she's a pretty good healer. I think the thing that surprised me most about Octopath Traveler was how good the voice acting was. You look at the graphics and you think, oh, the voice acting is probably going to be just okay, but honestly, that's what really helped me connect with all these different characters because the voice acting was that good. And speaking of the graphics, they are just so striking. Those HD sprites just look unbelievable. Not to mention the different environments go together so well with the incredible soundtrack. Whether it's a character theme or the main theme or just a battle theme, all the different songs in this game were so powerful and so memorable. Ys 8 is easily one of the best pick up and play JRPGs out there. Combat is immediately fun and satisfying, not to mention the fast and fluid ways you can avoid enemies like flash guarding and dodging. No matter what you're doing, it's fun because the combat in Ys 8 is just so good. And I think that's what helps the game loop. Whether you're exploring, fighting, or building up your camp by rescuing different people, it's all just a total blast and there's always something fun to do. Not to mention the mystery of Donna and how she's tied to this island and this world, and her and Adol going back and forth, that was just so compelling and kept me intrigued until the very end. And this is the game I've beat the most times, mainly thanks to speedrunning. I think I've beat this game close to 100 times, and I'm not kidding at all. I learned the speedrun because playing the game was just so fun, and the mechanics and music are just that excellent. Eventually I was able to beat the game in under 2 hours, and I gotta say I'm pretty proud of myself. In my opinion, it doesn't get any better when it comes to strategy RPGs than Final Fantasy Tactics. Really, it all starts with that character customization. There are so many different classes to mix and match abilities from, and there's always something new and fun that you can do with your characters. For me, I always had Ramza be a knight with 2 swords just because it's awesome and you can do a lot of damage, and I always had one character as a monk with armor because they would just never die. And I think the other thing that sets it apart from other strategy RPGs is its level design. For example, something like Lionel Castle, where you're trapped on one side of the wall and you need to, hit the door button to get onto the other side, or just varying terrain. It just was always different, and I think it really sets it apart even from strategy RPGs today. Not to mention a totally compelling story. And it starts off so small with Delita and Ramza just having these dreams and wanting to do these different things, and then where they end up at the end of the game is just so interesting and super cool. And I know the mainline Final Fantasy games get lauded for their soundtrack, but honestly, Final Fantasy Tactics has an incredible soundtrack. Whether it's the main theme or just smaller moments where there's story going on, or even the battle themes, this soundtrack is incredible if you've never taken the time to listen to it. And I think why I keep coming back to this game over and over is it's just endlessly replayable. Whether you're decking out characters with classes you've never used before, or using, unique characters that you've never used before, like Cloud or Balthier or Meliadul, these different characters that have unique abilities that nobody else has, there's always a new reason to try out different characters. And it still confuses me to this day why Square has never made a proper sequel outside of the advanced games. I'm still holding out hope that Square will do the right thing and make a new proper Final Fantasy Tactics. In my eyes, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch was the savior of JRPGs on consoles during the PS3 era. For those of you who don't remember or just don't know, there weren't that many JRPGs in that era, and the ones that were out, people didn't really seem to enjoy as much as games in the past. And what caught my eye immediately is the gorgeous Studio Ghibli inspired art style. It was one of the best looking games ever at the time and still holds up today in my opinion. I remember tearing up every time I looked at it because I couldn't believe how good it looked. And the world was stunning with a traditional JRPG world map, and it was a pure pleasure to explore all the different towns throughout the world. And the soundtrack is one of my all-time favorites, composed by Joe Hisaishi, who has done a lot of the Studio Ghibli soundtracks. I think the thread that ties this game together is Oliver's heartwarming story to save his mother. And I really believe the best part is that we get to play it and not just watch it. From top to bottom, Persona 5 has to be one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. It oozes with style from its stylish combat all the way down to the menus. Now I gotta say, before Persona 5, I've never seen anyone cosplay a menu before. I mean, that's just how good the menus were in this game. And I remember when Persona 5 was first teased, my only 2 requests were 1, I wanted to look like Catherine, and 2, I wanted to be even longer than Persona 4. Well, good job, Atlas, mission accomplished. And I think what was so surprising is every aspect of Persona 5 is so polished and kept me wanting to play for hours on end. Everything from the improved dungeons, compelling characters, and a plot that kept pulling me forward and made me want to know what happens next. And honestly, I think that's Persona 5's greatest strength. All these systems flow together so seamlessly that you don't want to stop playing, even though the game's over 100 hours long. And I savored every second of it, and I'm so glad that so many new players found this series through Persona 5. I really struggled with placing Dragon Quest XI over Persona 5, but when it came right down to it, there were 2 main aspects that pushed it over the edge. Number 1 was the world. It was just so much fun to explore, and the huge amount of varied towns were just incredible. I couldn't believe how different and interesting each one was. I loved searching every corner for treasure chests and other goodies. And number 2 were the characters. As much as I loved the cast of Persona 5, the cast of Dragon Quest XI just stuck with me in deeper ways the more that time went on. Whether it was Sylvando's flamboyant antics or Jade's kind heart, I just really enjoyed every interaction with all these different characters. I think more than anything, Dragon Quest XI has this amazing sense of adventure that I remember feeling from classic JRPGs back in the PS1 days. There just hadn't been a game that made me feel like that in a long time, and I just loved it. I usually don't replay a ton of JRPGs, but with all the new features added to the Switch version, I think I might have to give this world one last visit. I'm gonna cheat here and rope in the Final Fantasy VII Remake because my love for it really stems from my love of the original. It's the game that got me into RPGs and will forever hold a special place in my heart. I don't think I truly knew how much I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII deep down until the remake. Whenever certain music tracks would play at just the right time or familiar characters would share a heartwarming moment, I couldn't help but tear up. It was just that special to me. And I think the biggest reason why I love Final Fantasy VII so much is how well the game endears you to its characters, even back on the PS1. You get so many opportunities to learn about each character and see their different motivations for why they want to save the world. And on the flip side, you feel the hatred for Sephiroth and all the different villains throughout the world through their actions. Not to mention, it's a game and it's just fun to play. The materia system is one of the coolest customization systems I've ever seen. The game is also filled with tons of fun minigames and other ways to interact with it, like squats, motorcycle chases, and a host of other fun games at the Gold Saucer. I've honestly tried to excuse my love for Final Fantasy VII as nostalgia, but I can't help but enjoy it every time I play it. It's gonna be a long, hard wait for part 2 of the remake, but if part 1 is any indication, it'll definitely be worth it. And finally, my number 1 favorite JRPG and my number 1 favorite game of all time is Persona 4 Golden. I found out about the original in 2010 right as I was getting back into games, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The Golden version improves on an already incredible game. Everything from the characters, story, combat, and general game flow had me hooked. I've enjoyed video game characters before, but I've never felt so connected that they felt like real friends until Persona 4. And that's honestly why it stayed as my favorite game for as long as it has. No other cast of characters has won me over like Persona 4's has. And of course it has great music, fun combat, an amazing plot, along with a host of other things, but for me it'll always come back to those characters. Now if you want to hear even more about why I love Persona 4 so much, then check out my video called Why I Love Persona 4. It goes into deep detail about why I love this game so much, including meeting a number of the cast members. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment naming one of the games from this list that you'd love to receive as part of the giveaway I'm doing. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.